John Kelly.
Yep.
Welcome to Canada.
Thank you, Natalie. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm excited to try your whiskeys. Not only are they fabulous, but you've got many colorful stories to share with us.
Right.
So I'm going to, for those who may not be familiar with your history or the brand, I'm going to just share a few details first and then we'll get into it.
Perfect.
Sounds good? Okay.
Perfect, sounds great.
So you are the CEO of the Belfast Distillery Company. You're responsible for putting Belfast back on the whiskey map.
Yes.
Good for you. The city is also where you were born and
That's
raised.
right.
And you even said your high school is kind of like really close to where the whiskey is made today, right?
Right. Well,
Yeah.
our brand home is in an old prison.
Yes.
And when I was at school, it was right beside the prison, so we
Right.
could hear the guys kind of kicking football in their yard as we were playing soccer in our yard. You know,
that's
so
great.
yeah, it's great. It's great. But changed times. You know, that was an interesting period in Belfast history, and things have transformed and changed a lot. But yes, I am very delighted to be, you know, producing our whiskey in my own backyard.
And you're literally. What did your teachers tell you when
Well,
you were a kid?
Occasionally, some of my teachers would have said, "Kelly, if you don't behave yourself, you'll end up next door." And here I am.
You did.
Here I am.
That is great. So, you know, Belfast used to be the epicenter of whiskey production.
Right.
It exported over 75% of all Irish whiskey. I didn't
Right.
know that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was at the height of its power. But then there was a kind of a collapse,
Right.
prohibition, and some
Yeah.
other factors.
Yeah.
And now there's just 2 distilleries in the city, yours and one other.
One other, that's
okay,
right.
wow.
That's right. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but your whiskey dates back to 1776. It has quite a long history. But you're really back to put it on the whiskey map, to revive the legend, the
That's right.
story of McConnell's. And so under your leadership, the brand has not only transformed, but it's now available and sold in 45 markets, countries.
Around the world.
This is
correct.
amazing.
Thank
in
you.
5 years.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I must add, though, too, before we begin, that I feel like I'm kind of talking to kin, because both of my grandmothers were Irish,
Oh, good.
Brophy and Bryden,
Very good.
and so they are raising a toast to you in heaven right now, so
Great.
their own bottle of McConnell's up there.
And were they from the north of Ireland? Which part of Ireland were they?
Kilkenny.
From? Kilkenny. Lovely city.
Yes.
Wow, beautiful city.
Kilkenny and
Yeah.
Ulster.
Okay.
So,
Ulster. Well,
2 different
yeah,
regions.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Good. Close to home, Ulster.
Yes. Okay, so now I want to know if there's a moment, John, when you really knew that you wanted to bring McConnell's back to life. So it has this history, 1776, but it had faded. What kind of triggered the thought, this is a story that needs to be brought back, a brand that needs to be brought back to life?
Well, look, my background is in this industry. You know, I've spent 30-something years in the industry, 22 years with the global giant that was Diageo, or is
Right.
Diageo. And I was working with another Irish whiskey company. And I was approached by the chairman of our company, who's 86 years old and a real legend in the bourbon whiskey in the US.
Okay.
I'd known about this project. The project had been around for a while, but for a variety of reasons, it just never got off the ground, be that financial or strategic or, you know, board level, but it just didn't happen. And I got approached about this, and when I listened to the story, and I thought, wow, that's quite amazing. And look, I was in a really good job with a good company, and I sat with my wife and I said, look, this has come up. This is an opportunity. I've got goosebumps thinking about it now, actually,
really?
because you know, she said to me, look, if you don't do this, someone else will,
Right.
and you'll forever regret not taking this on, because you know, it was a challenge. You know, we had to create the brand, we had to create the liquid, the packaging, and everything.
Everything from
and
scratch.
then build our brand home.
Right.
So, yeah, that was the moment. We had that conversation, and we said, look, you got to go for this.
Wow.
You got to go for that.
Wow.
And here I am. You know, I'm delighted to be part of the team that's you know, resurrected the McConnell's brand, and as we're playing our part in, as you said, bringing distilling back to Belfast. And
Right.
Belfast was once the epicenter of the whiskey world.
Yes,
You know,
75%.
Exactly,
That's
but that was
amazing.
in a day when Scotch whiskey wasn't that big.
Okay.
Irish whiskey was at the forefront of whiskey production anywhere in the world.
Okay.
So to have 70+% of that volume exporting through Belfast to nearly nothing, well, really nothing at the turn of the century. Yeah, I just wanted to be, you know, at the forefront of the revival of
Sure.
McConnell's, and and to help bring distilling back to Belfast.
Yeah, oh, there's so much about this brand that I want to get into as well. Just every aspect from the bottle to the stories. But now Belfast was famous for rope making, linen, and shipbuilding.
Right.
You mentioned just before we got started, the Titanic was
That's
built
right.
there.
The Titanic
I did not
was
realize
famous,
that.
yeah. I mean, shipbuilding was probably the biggest industry alongside whiskey.
Okay.
And we got to go back to the 1800s when, Belfast was one of the industrial cities of that industrial revolution in the 1800s. It was a capital of the industrial revolution. Shipbuilding, whiskey making, rope making, linen making, those were the big industries back at that time. And then it all kind of, went a little south for the Irish whiskey industry, geopolitical wars, Prohibition, World War I, World War II,
fires,
the 1916 uprising, the Civil War in Ireland. There was an economic war with the Commonwealth, which meant that Irish whiskey couldn't be exported to India, Australia, or here to Canada.
Oh, wow.
So that really saw the decline of Irish whiskey.
Sure.
And it was in 1938 that the McConnell's brand finally kind of closed its eyes and lay dormant for 80 years until we resurrected the brand. And Irish whiskey kind of really fell away quite a lot then, so that there were only 4 distilleries on the island of Ireland at the turn of this century.
Really?
And when we opened our brand home and our distillery in April of 24, we were the 50th distillery on the island of Ireland. So we're delighted that we've gone back from a near complete demise to 50 distilleries across the island.
Oh, sure. And the symbols of linen making and shipbuilding and rope making, they're on your label, right?
Well, I mean, they are. I mean, this badge that we have here, we like to pay homage to the great kind of shipbuilding industry of Belfast. And if you ever get a chance to do the Titanic Museum tour, you'll hear about those shipbuilders who had these steel plaques, riveted into the ships. That was a job to be a riveter. And, so that's a little homage to that. The Harp of Erin, the beautiful harmonious symbol of Ireland and old traditional music in Ireland. And we are very fortunate that we have a trademark opportunity for the Harp of Erin because it was on our old bottle.
Okay.
Guinness, for example, also has a trademark for the harp. So it's a number of brands have it, but we kind of like this as a symbol of the harmonious blend, because our whiskey is a blend of grain and malt whiskey.
Right.
And this kind of harp is a symbol of the harmonious blend of our liquid.
Okay. Yeah, great.
And lots of other stuff on the
label.
label.
There's lots of other stuff. While we're at the bottle here, now this ribbed part of the bottle also has significance. Doesn't it?
I mean, this is significant. We thought about the old bars in Belfast in the 1800s. You won't believe this, but ladies were not allowed to drink in the bars.
Mother's ruin. That was gin, but anyway,
my goodness.
Take care of the children, stay home.
Exactly, but our matriarch, Eleanor McConnell, was the mother of James and John McConnell, J&J McConnell. And she ran the business in the 1800s. She was a rectifying distiller in the 1800s.
Okay, in the 1800s when women weren't even in business at all.
She was not allowed to go into a bar
to sell her product.
But she was a rectifying distiller.
Oh my God. Okay, so what is rectifying distiller?
This is a person who refines the liquid that's coming from other distillers.
Okay.
So like a master blender, if you want, someone who brings those together and then blends them to their recipe.
Sure. So
that
it's
was her
pretty high skill to have.
For a lady to have that job was unheard of back then.
Okay.
But the reason I mention it now is, and if you've talked about this opaque glass at the bottom of the bottle. Ladies were not allowed to drink in the pubs of Belfast back in the 1800s.
Okay.
Clever publicans had little rooms almost like this in the pub downstairs, but they would have had an opaque glass around it, so that if the police came in to have a look to see if there's any ladies in the room, they couldn't see through the glass.
See it. They were hiding.
So we thought this was a great story, and we thought we would kind of, bring that into the design of the bottle.
And they called that little room the snug?
The snug.
The
snug.
Keep
How
the
cute
women
is that?
all snug.
Keep them all in the snug.
As long as we have our whiskey, I don't care how snug it is.
Yeah, exactly. But lots of great stories that we like to tell on the McConnell's bottle.
There's so much just to the bottle alone.
Thank you.
So, you know, a lot of people pitch brand revivals, right? But never follow through. So what was the one thing that almost stopped this from happening? What was the biggest obstacle to reviving this brand?
Wow, COVID was a big obstacle.
That's when you
right?
started,
Well,
right?
exactly.
Why
you know,
not?
who would exactly who would have
when
thought?
the pubs and restaurants are shut down.
Exactly. So there was no doubt that. But listen, COVID was a difficult time for everyone, and
Sure.
the industry kind of managed to to get around that by doing things by innovating. So we were briefing sales staff at the LCBO. We were having virtual calls over Teams and that type of thing. But
Right.
there's no doubt that COVID was one hurdle that we had to get over.
Wow.
Unique to our project, I would say that that the kind of our home is in an old prison.
Right.
And we have a 125-year lease on that prison,
Oh,
but
really?
it's owned by the government.
Oh,
okay?
really?
So we were negotiating with the government.
Okay.
We also have a board of directors who are very keen to invest in Northern Ireland, but they're all US based.
Okay.
So you've got a board of directors in the US, you've got the Northern Ireland government who own the building, you've got all of the legal guys, the financial guys, the banks. It's quite an incredible, eclectic mix of business people.
Yeah.
My job was to kind of get everyone kind of together
Wow.
and just kind of take us in the direction that we wanted to go in. And look, in all honesty, that took like a couple of years to really get everybody on the same page, signed up to the one document. And it was August of 2022 when we actually got going with the reconstruction. So
That is
yeah.
great. And was there, getting into the LCBO, I think the world's single largest
Yeah.
purchaser of alcohol, maybe second
Yeah.
only to Costco, but what was the conversation, or how did you get in? That is so
Right.
hard to get in
Well,
there.
I use a phrase. I'm a salesperson. I've general management roles, but primarily, what I do is sales, and I talk about shoe leather and building relationships. So
Right.
it's so important to get out there, be it to Canada, to Asia, to Europe, even in our home city.
Sure.
But burn that shoe leather, get around the pubs, build relationships, talk to people. And look, that's kind of part of the journey that we had with the LCBO. I met them on a number of occasions here. They were on an education trip to the distilleries of Ireland,
Okay.
and we were very fortunate that they wanted to come and see us.
Yes.
And we had them in the distillery, and we had a nice kind of tasting and a little bit of dinner. And they got to really, I think, experience
That
what
atmosphere.
we're trying to do.
The story,
the
yes,
story, just what
yeah.
we're talking about today. And I think that was probably a pivotal moment in the relationship, because there are a couple of hundred Irish whiskey brands out there. There's 50 distilleries, but only 20-something of those distilleries have a brand home.
Okay.
And
They're virtual
we
distilleries, the rest of them?
well,
Like
they
brands?
just don't have people who can come and see the distillery and
Okay.
spend time in the distillery.
Right.
Whereas we see this as like hand in glove. We
Yes.
see having the whiskey being part of the alcohol industry, but having the brand home being
Right.
part of the tourism industry. We see that as so important to the success of the brand. And I think that resonated with the LCBO. They thought, wow, yeah, these guys are playing their part in bringing distilling back to Belfast.
Sure.
But they're also like bringing tourism to Belfast, and
Right.
particularly this part of Belfast, which was it suffered after the troubles that we had in Belfast.
The Northern Ireland conflicts.
right.
1998? No, it ended
No,
in
it
1998.
started
too.
from
in the 60s.
60s to 98 was
30 years,
was when
yeah.
the Good Friday Agreement, and where our distillery is and where I went to school was like a bit of a I don't want to say battle lines, but
Right.
the two communities were segregated, and this was one of the lines of segregation. So
Okay.
a lot of kind of regeneration was needed in this space, and we were investing a lot of money into this space. And I think the LCBO really saw what we were doing for the community,
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing for tourism, and obviously what we're doing for Irish whiskey. And yeah, so it's not one meeting. I guess it's a series of meetings
Sure.
that's led to the great relationship that we have with the LCBO now.
That's great. I keep putting this off, but I want to talk about the distillery itself. So you showed me a video before we started, and we'll put that
Right.
video as part of this video.
Yeah.
But the prison itself is huge.
Yeah.
It
it's
was a
big campus.
Victorian prison,
Right.
and it closed in 1996, so it
Yeah.
lay dormant. But you took it over and gave it a complete, well, not a complete, but a real retrofit facelift, but you still kept the character of the Victorian prison. Tell me how you blended the two.
Well, I would say it is a complete reconstruction.
Okay.
But we left everything intact that we could do and that we were architecturally approved to do.
Sure.
So we had to have our own architect, but we also had to have a architect from the government.
Because it's a historic building.
Historic,
Okay.
heritage, Grade A listed building. So all of the work that we've done in that building had to be signed off by those two architects before we could even, start the construction. That's one of the things that took such a long time.
Sure.
So we had to preserve everything. So to give you an example, the gangways or the walkways where the cells are have these wonderful slate walkways.
Okay.
It's an old-fashioned prison. If you think of San Francisco, the
Alcatraz?
Alcatraz. So if you
Yes.
think of Alcatraz, it's balconies and there's this kind of atrium. But we had these slate walkways on either side of the atrium, and we had to protect those. That meant that we couldn't knock away the walls or the walkways.
Okay.
So we had to actually lower our equipment through a hole in the roof
Wow.
by crane.
Oh, wow.
I'll never forget the day that we lowered our pot stills through the roof. So yes, we had to preserve everything in that reconstruction. And I think, I feel we've done an amazing job. We've
Yeah.
protected the history, the heritage, the wonderful building that it is. But, we've brought employment and we're producing wonderful whiskey in that space. So I'm very proud of the architects and the engineers who kind of made that happen.
Well, I didn't realize till I saw it on the video, but it feels warm and cozy, and yet it's a prison. I
Right.
mean, you can still see the echoes of the prison there, but it still feels like an inviting place where you'd want to sit down. There are bar areas and barrel areas, and I wondered how you married the two when, it has this history of
Yeah.
suffering, and yet now it's a place of joy and welcoming.
Well, I do wonder what would some of those prisoners that spend time there
What they think?
about
They're
what we're
probably
doing
pretty
now. They would love
happy.
it.
Yeah, that's right.
We do tell, look, prisons were known around the world for illegal distilling.
Okay.
Prison
Bootleg.
inmates were making their own bootleg,
Sure.
their own moonshine. So we like to talk about our distillery as the first legal distillery in a prison anywhere in the world.
That's great. I love it. So let's talk about Eleanor. You mentioned she took over the business. Her husband died.
Yeah.
And 1828, in a world where women really weren't in business at all. Give me an example. Now, she became a rectifying distiller. That's amazing. But
Yeah.
is there another example that comes to mind that really showed how much fortitude she had?
Well, I just think the fact that she was able to, rear her family.
right.
She had the two boys, but she was pregnant with her third child, and she was able to rear her family and be a businesswoman.
Right.
With all of the sales and marketing that comes from running your business, and also be, a rectifying distiller. I mean, I think about our organization, I kind of do the general management, the sales and marketing, but I've
Sure.
got a professional, great master distiller who looks after that.
Right.
But she managed to
doing it
kind
all.
of combine all of this, so
Wow.
it's quite incredible. And a big thing for us is changing places, changing faces,
Okay.
so because we want to bring Irish whiskey and McConnell's to a new set of consumers, so if I think about changing places, we've talked about that, we've transformed this old prison into a wonderful brand home and distillery. Changing faces for us is about bringing McConnell's to a new demographic.
Okay.
People think of whiskey in the past as kind of old, pale and stale, or white, pale and stale, so it's kind of older men who drank whiskey.
Sure.
We don't think about it that way. When we look at our target demographic, it's 50% male, 50% female.
Okay.
And we really want to create, wonderful cocktails and beautiful blends of whiskey that appeals to everyone.
All right.
And I guess that inspiration is also coming from Eleanor, who was a wonderful woman in her day, and we want to make sure that we can continue in her footsteps and engage with lots of female consumers on the McConnell's brand.
Right. And if Eleanor were to see what you've done today, what do you think she would say?
I think she'd be very proud of it.
Yeah.
I mean, we've created different styles of whiskey here that appeal to different tastes. But we've managed to transform the brand, but we've held on to the really the great product cues that we talked about
Right,
earlier
the
in the
history
brand,
at the
and the
same
history and the
time.
heritage. So I think,
Yeah.
you know, hopefully, she's looking down at us thinking you're doing a good job. And the other thing, just lastly, and kind of on females in connection to the business, the suffragettes
Yes.
in
Who
Northern
advocated
Ireland.
for the vote. Yes.
Correct, in the 1920s, I'm going to say, but my
Okay.
history may need to be corrected, but I'm pretty sure it's the 20s or early 1900s anyway. But the suffragettes in Belfast, whenever they were marching, and some of them were actually imprisoned.
Huh.
Believe it or not, they were imprisoned in A Wing, which is the wing that we're in. So not only did we have a wonderful matriarch in Eleanor McConnell, but we had some of those women back in the day who were fighting for civil rights and their fair rights, and they were also in our prison. So we think there's big connections there.
Yeah, absolutely, love it. And so today, like, how do you ensure that Eleanor's legacy isn't just a marketing footnote? Like, are there any other things you do?
Well, you know, Women in Whisky is a big program in Ireland, you know, so like all of the women that are involved in our business are all part of that kind of project, you know, so that's a dedicated project on the island of Ireland to kind of, you know, encourage females to come into the industry, you know, so we make sure that all of our females that are part of our workforce are all part of that program. So again, that's a little bit of something that we think we're doing in kind of respect of Eleanor and the wonderful work she did in our history.
I would have liked my grandmothers to meet Eleanor.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, so let's just skip ahead to some of the things that we haven't got to yet.
Yeah.
So you opened the distillery in April of 2024 inside the old Crumlin Road Gaol, a Victorian prison.
Yeah.
There's a photo of prisoners on the roof in 1994 with a photo of the copper stills.
Right beside
beside them, yeah.
Almost 30 years later,
Okay.
that roof where those, look, the inmates were in cells that were built in 1840s.
Oh, wow.
And this is in 1994.
Huh.
You know, these cells did not have, you know, didn't have a toilet facility. There was no ensuite, you know, so this was slopping out in the morning time. Like, you know, so in the 1990s, that was like, you know, that was not right.
Right.
So they got on the roof, and for about a week in the summer of '94, they were on the roof, kind of saying enough was enough, protesting. You know, and the prison closed down, and 2 years later, in 1996, it lay derelict for you know, for many years, and it was really only when we got this project finally into place. It was August of 22 and we started the reconstruction, and it was quite incredible.
That's a huge project.
And the building lay derelict for all that time, you know, so the fact that we've been able to transform that building, bring life back to that building, again, we're super proud of that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, one thing I wanted to ask, and it would have been the first question my Brophy grandmother would have asked, because she was an English teacher.
Right.
You spell whiskey without an E.
We do.
Unlike all the other Irish whiskeys.
We do. That's
more like
quite
the
right.
Scottish.
That's quite right. So whiskey here without the E, and we tell the story on the bottle here. What about the E?
Right.
So the E was introduced to Irish whiskey in the 1800s.
Okay.
And at that point in time, Scotch whiskey was starting to climb, and Irish whiskey was knowing this kind of new competitor. They were innovating with the column still. They were producing liquid more cost effectively, so they were starting to steal market share. And the Dublin distillers decided that they would do something different. And one of the ideas they had was, well, we're going to spell our whiskey EY, a bit like bourbon. So bourbon is spelled with an EY. So the Dublin distillers decided this is what we're going to do. It'll be a point of difference between Irish whiskey and Scotch whiskey, and it has proven to to that.
Okay.
But that was in the 1800s.
That was
we go back to 1776.
Right.
So we were the original. We always spelt it that way. So when we got the old bottles from the museum and had a look at the old labels, you know, this is how it was spelt back then.
Sure.
The McConnell's family didn't follow suit with the Dublin distillers. They proudly held on to that old spelling.
Okay.
So we felt there's no way that we were going to introduce the E.
Right.
And we now are I believe, the only Irish whiskey that is spelt this way. And you talked about stories earlier. You know, people love a story or two, and that's just a nice little story that you can. You know,
there's so many pieces on that label alone.
You just need to have a look at the bottle, and you can tell lots of stories.
Yes. All right, that's whiskey with an E.
Yeah.
All right. At McConnell's, 5 is a magic number.
5's the magic number.
Why is it a magic number?
Well, we believe that it's better to keep the liquid that little bit longer in the barrel.
Okay.
So the law in Ireland and the geographic indication is that whiskey, to be Irish whiskey, you have to be in a barrel on the island of Ireland for 3 years.
Okay.
The myth that goes with that is it should be 3 years and 1 day.
Ah.
Just in case you can't remember which time of
Which
day
day.
you did it
Okay.
3 years ago. So if you do it for 3 years and 1 day, you're sure to be over the,
All right.
so that's the 3 years and 1 day myth. But we decided to go that bit further. You know, we believe that we have a super premium Irish whiskey here. Yes, it would be more cost effective for us to take it out of the barrel and bottle it and sell it at 3 years, but we believe that 5 is our magic number. So we keep it in the barrel for those extra 2 years. And
What
we think
happens
that,
to the whiskey? Does it get smoother or?
well, yeah, I mean, there's lots of different terms that people use, but that extra maturation would lead to, maybe will lead to more colour in the whiskey.
Okay.
So even if you look at kind of the 3 whiskies we have here,
Right.
this is our 5-year.
Yes.
In American First Fill bourbon. This is the same liquid in American First Fill bourbon and then into our sherry casks.
Ah, okay.
So look at the difference.
Yes.
It may only be in the sherry cask for about 10 months,
Okay.
but the sherry gives a lot of colour. So
Right.
that's what happens whenever the whiskey is in the barrel. You get lots of more colour or lots more taste profile. So, you know, we could leave it for a lot longer than that, but we've decided that 5 is our magic number and we take it out after 5 years. So it's kind of a signal of our quality credentials in this super premium Irish whiskey category.
Sure. Well, it certainly costs you more to do that.
It does,
Yeah.
does. But we think it's the right thing
worth
to do.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we really do. We really believe in that. It's important to us.
Okay. Your master distiller, Graham Miller, is always trying to create the harmony of the flavor, like
Right.
we spoke about with the harp.
Yeah.
Now, he tastes everything, right?
Yeah, he has a say in every stage of the production process. And,
Wow.
and that's quite unique because we are a distillery that's industrial in volume and scale. We produce 500,000 litres of pure alcohol.
Okay.
So that's about 4,000 barrels of whiskey.
Okay.
So that's like industrial scale.
Yeah.
But just to give you a comparison, some of the big distilleries would produce 12 or 14 million
Oh.
litres of pure alcohol. So
Wow.
it's a lot bigger than us.
Sure.
So we feel that we're in this kind of really special place where every stage of the production, whilst it's automated, Graham has a view at the closing point of every stage. He's a complete expert in the business, award-winning master distiller for our sherry cask and for our 20-year-old blend. So, you know, he really has the final call on everything in terms of that part of the business. So that's his part of the business, and we think we're in a nice spot because we're not fully automated. We're kind of small batch, and Graham makes the decisions.
Ah, that's quite a commitment to have him
Yeah.
taste everything.
Yeah.
Has he ever rejected anything?
Well, he has, and a couple of, Graham maintains that the best time to drink whiskey, to taste whiskey,
Yes.
is like around 9:30 in the morning.
It's true.
Right.
That's when your palate is sharpest.
Exactly.
That's when your will to taste, though, is lowest.
Right.
He's really personally.
He firmly believes that this is the right time
Yes.
to do that. And a couple of quick stories he told me. At one point in the late morning, he could smell a different aroma in the distillery
Okay.
that wasn't the aroma for that time of day.
Oh.
The aroma was fine, but it was just too early in the process.
Oh, really?
And he kind of ran into the control room and he said, "Something's not quite right. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm smelling this kind of fancy smell," as he described it. I don't really know what that fancy smell is, but and there's something not right. He looked around the kind of control panel, and sure enough, there was a 0.5% difference in one of the kind of mechanisms in the kind of control panel. And he was like,
Really?
"What happened here? Why is that there? It shouldn't be there." So he had to kind of course correct,
Yeah.
slow things down and get that
And he
fixed.
smelled it.
And he smelt that
It's like
in
the
that
princess
morning.
and the pea, you know.
Exactly.
Wow,
This
what
guy's
a nose.
he's a complete expert in this. And then another quick story. This was going back a couple of summers ago. We were ready for a new batch of our sherry cask,
Uh-huh.
and I and my team had kind of started lining up orders. So I'm like, "Hey Graham, let's get this bottled. You know, we got some orders. It's late August, early September, and he went to taste what was in the barrel, and he came back and he said, "I got some bad news, boss.
Oh.
It's not ready. It's not going to be ready for another 6 weeks."
Oh.
And I'm like, "Graham, we've kind of got these orders lining up here."
Going into the holiday season.
And he's like, "John, this is my call." And I'm like, "I know it's your call, absolutely." So we waited for 6 or 8 weeks that time because he's the expert in this. I'm not the expert in this type of decision making. And that's why he's an award-winning blender and distiller, because he makes the decisions and we listen to his decisions. We left it for almost 2 more months in the barrel, and that year the sherry cask finish won the best age statement blended whiskey on the island of Ireland.
Oh, wow.
And that was a little bit more patience from Graham and expertise from Graham that allowed us to get it bottled at the right time.
Oh, wow. Didn't even have to say I told you so. I guess
no,
it's like,
no.
we know.
He knows his part of the business, and he's just a complete expert in that space.
Now, triple distillation is one of the hallmarks of Irish whiskey. So it's, what does that mean in a non-technical sense? I have a sense that the spirit is passing through the stills 3 times.
3 times.
But is there anything more to it? And more importantly, what does that give the whiskey?
It's really all about the kind of the finishing of the product. I mean, the Scots are renowned for double distillation. Scotch whiskey, as we know, is incredibly successful, and that's all based on a double distillation method. In Ireland, 3 is the magic number, so we've got 3 styles of whiskey. We talked about that earlier, the grain, the malt, and the blend. So we believe in Ireland that, triple distillation through those copper pots is just that, little bit better than our Scottish neighbours, and I guess we think that would kind of maybe lead to a more smoother or a better refined finish in our liquid. We can't say that's categorically, right versus our Scotch counterparts, but yeah, it's that final kind of finishing or that smoothness that we're always kind of searching for, and that happens through that kind of 3rd distillation. So it's something that's important to us in Ireland, and something at McConnell's that we're very precious about. So absolutely triple distilled all the time.
Yeah, marrying those grains.
That's right.
Let's taste.
Right, yeah.
We've done a lot, lots of talking.
That's a good idea.
Let's taste. Let's start with your 5-year-old signature release. Tell us about that.
So the 5-year-old signature release, what can I say about this? Well, a number of things. First of all, we use American bourbon first fill barrels. So in America, the bourbon barrels are used once, but they're not used a second time. And that's to protect the cooperage industry in America. So once those barrels have been used and disgorged, they're available to other distillers around the world. Scots and Irish use American bourbon a lot. What's not unique, but what's different about us is that we will only use American bourbon first fill. That means that the last liquid that was in that barrel was American bourbon, not another Scotch or another Irish. So if you want to nose and have a little nose.
Give me a little tutorial on how to nose, how it's different maybe from nosing a wine.
Right, well, I'm not sure about different from nosing a wine, but one thing that we always talk about is that each of your nostrils will have a little different kind of nose.
That's true.
You can get something a little different. So we kind of recommend that you try each nostril, and you maybe will get something a little different out of each. Now, in our 5-year-old, we're getting, hopefully, I mean, this is all personal, right? I get, what you get, it can be affected by what you've been eating during the day also, but we would like to get, think you get a little bit of citrus on the nose, maybe some floral notes. And then if you want to have a little taste, we should toast and say sláinte. Sláinte.
Yes.
And if you have a little taste, I'm hoping that you're going to get some vanilla undertones coming from the bourbon.
Okay. Wow, that just fills your senses. Wow.
Right.
It's smooth.
Smooth is often the word that's used, absolutely. There's a couple of things that I kind of talk about in our liquid that's maybe different to some other Irish whiskies at a different price point, let's say. So some Irish whiskies will have a very high grain content and a small malt content, we kind of balance that, so we kind of take up our malt content almost as much as our grain. And what I feel that this gives us is a warm sensation on the tip of your tongue, but not a burning sensation.
Right, that's what I was going to say. Whiskey,
Right.
at first for me, when years ago, it was like, oh, I can't drink it. It's just too hot.
Fiery.
Fiery,
People
yeah, it
say
burns.
fiery.
And
And
but this doesn't.
For some people, that could be, if it's a higher grain component, you get that fieriness.
Right.
The second element is, at the back of your throat and the kind of long-lasting finish.
Yes,
we
it keeps
believe
coming
is
back.
right. If this was a high grain content, that finish would dissipate very quickly.
Ah,
If it was like a 95 grain and 5 malt, it would be more of a standard whiskey than a super premium, and you would not get that finish that you just got there. So
right.
warm but not burny, and that long-lasting finish is what we get from the higher malt content, and also that kind of vanilla note from the bourbon barrels.
That's the same in wine, the long finish, that how long can you continue to smell those aromas
Right.
is a sign of good quality and excellence. Now,
Great.
what grains? Barley?
Barley, yes,
And
barley.
then the malt is,
It's malted barley. So
Okay.
there are 3 styles. There's grain, malt, and pot whiskey, and we're blending grain and malted barley.
okay.
The third style of pot whiskey, we don't actually produce pot whiskey. It's unique to some distilleries in Ireland.
Okay.
And as a quick aside, pot still whiskey was invented by Irish distillers who were trying to avoid paying tax. You were taxed on your malted barley,
Okay.
so they started making whiskey without the malt in it.
I
But
see.
we don't do that. It's really good stuff, but we don't actually do that because we
Okay.
can't do it in our distillery. But so this is a blend of grain
Blend of
and
those-
malt whiskey. So it's
okay.
a blend of those two.
Oh, it's so
Sláinte.
beautiful, sláinte. I guess it has to say, I've heard there's a superstition too, that the glasses have to clink or else you're inviting 7 years of bad luck.
Right, there
Yeah,
you go. Well, we
there you
should
go.
certainly clink our glasses. So that's our 5-year-old blend.
Oh,
I
it's
keep
so
talking
nice.
about super premium. Price point for this in the LCBO at the moment is $54. So it's not at that kind of $40 price point. It's a little
Sure.
bit more premium than that. But we believe for the quality of the liquid,
quality, yes.
the quality of the package,
Absolutely.
the transformation story that we're telling, it's
It is just so
real.
smooth. That really, I love it. Like
Delighted.
It's just,
Yeah,
see,
I'm
I
glad.
drink mostly wine.
Right.
Now I do write about wine and spirits, but this just, oh my,
Good. It
It's
doesn't
good.
leave you kind of
No.
feeling
burnt.
burnt or flushed
No,
or
it's
anything
just
like that. It's
warm, and
warm.
It's like a liquid hug.
There you go.
Like a
What
cable
better
knit sweater.
for St. Patrick's Day, which is coming up very
exactly.
soon? What better than to try a little McConnell's Irish whiskey coming up to St. Patrick's?
Exactly. All right. So sherry cask finish.
Sherry cask, okay.
All right.
So-
And you chose Oloroso sherry as opposed to
Yeah.
Amontillado or other types of sherry.
No real reason for
Okay.
that. Graham selects all of our barrels, so his preference at that point in time, and probably to do with availability also, was these wonderful Oloroso sherry casks. So again, I bow to his greater knowledge in this space, and but Oloroso and that sherry gives a lot in a short period of time. So like even if we talked about it earlier,
Yes.
look at the color there.
I know, it's so
quite
rich.
incredible.
Beautiful.
And people
amber.
say to me, "Well, how long do you leave it in the barrel for? Is it a full year?" And I say, "Look, it all depends." And they say, "Oh, what do you mean depends? Surely it has to be, a certain length of time." Yes, it does, but it depends on the quality of the weather outside. Our barrels are not kept, in fact, anywhere in Ireland, they're not kept in a climate-controlled environment.
Okay.
Okay.
So outside to season them?
No, they're inside,
they're
like a
inside.
rick house or a
Okay.
warehouse.
Okay.
But the temperature in the warehouse can fluctuate
Okay.
quite dramatically.
All right.
And that summer that Graham rightly delayed the bottling of our sherry cask, we'd had a particularly poor summer, even by Irish standards, which, we don't get great summers. But we had lots of, cloud and rain, and it was damp and kind of chilly. If you had a really warm summer, the opposite of that, the
Right.
liquid would have been ready. So when I tell people it could be
okay.
8 or 9 months, but it could be 10 or 11,
Right.
it really is because the weather is important. If we have a really great summer, we could be taking that out in 8 or 9 months. It would just be the perfect blend for us and the perfect taste profile for us. But if it's been cold, we got to leave it in for that bit longer. And again, that's the kind of the art and the science, I guess, that
Sure.
Graham brings to the operation.
That is fascinating.
But it different color, and yeah, you know, the season really matters.
Yeah. And do you taste
Now,
the sherry
Well,
influence?
I believe you absolutely tasted it, and first of all on the nose,
Oh, yes. That's
Don't you?
right. Yes.
immediately.
And yet it's still a whiskey. I'm not confusing it with tasting sherry.
But you can get that kind of fortified wines
Yeah.
coming through
Absolutely.
on the nose.
The nuttiness.
Figs, nuttiness.
Nuttiness, yeah.
You're definitely getting
Beautiful.
that. Then on the palate, I talk about Christmas cake in a bottle. You know, so when you taste this, you're going to get a lot of those kind of cinnamon,
Oh, yeah.
raisins. Like
It
it
just
bursts,
explodes.
right?
Yeah.
It's
it
like
really
a
does.
sherry burst. You know, this
Yeah.
is kind of quite refined
That's
and coming out of the
laid
bourbon.
back. This is like
This is
I'm
like a
here.
sherry burst. This is
Yeah.
right at you. I'm
Yeah,
here.
it
It's a
is.
good way of
But
describing
yet not burning either, though. But it does burst.
it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Wow.
You have to go
Now-
slow with these.
You do have to go slow with these, and
Oh wow.
important to note, the sherry cask is actually 46% ABV,
Okay. Alcohol.
whereas the 5-year is 42% ABV.
Okay.
Now again, this is both of those things are a little notch above the norm. Whiskey needs to be 40% ABV,
Okay.
so we could easily bottle this at 3 years and 40%,
Okay.
but it's 5 years and it's 42%.
2%. Okay.
And again, because we're moving up and we're what we call premiumizing, you know, we're going into a cask finish, we felt that it was right to kind of bottle that at 46%. So, you know, sometimes a little drop of water in the 46% can kind of just change the taste profile as well.
Does it open up the aromas
It opens up
even
the
more?
aromas
Okay.
and that. So we could, you know, we could try it like that. But yeah, a sherry burst is really what you're getting out of this guy here.
And what does the extra alcohol do? Does it just carry forward those flavors more?
Yeah, it carries forward the flavors for sure. We also believe that it gives mixologists, you know, an opportunity to do different things with their cocktails. And
Okay.
today we just had a lovely seminar with a number of mixologists, and we were talking just about that.
Oh,
you know,
really?
you know, this is perfect, like in a long drink, like a McConnell's and ginger ale. And I must talk about ginger ale
yes.
actually. I'll come
Yeah,
back
yeah.
to that. But you know, this is perfect in a long drink like a McConnell's and ginger ale. But you know, for a more complex kind of cocktail, the sherry cask finish at that kind of stronger taste profile, higher ABV, really has those flavors kind of, you know, leaning
Will
into
come
that
through
cocktail
in the cocktail too,
Right.
without overwhelming it.
without overwhelming
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Oh, do go back to ginger ale. There's
Right.
a story there.
There is a story there,
Yes.
and it's particularly appropriate, I think, in Canada, because when I speak to Canadians, and I raise the topic of ginger ale because of the famous Canada Dry
Right.
ginger ale.
Yes.
You know, people assume that Canada invented ginger ale.
But no.
But no. And if I tell them that it's actually little old Belfast back in the homeland that was responsible for the person that invented ginger ale, they they're a bit surprised at that. But it was a Dr. Cantrell who went on to build a business called Cantrell and Cochrane, which is C&C, which is certainly very well known in Ireland and GB and across Europe. But C&C, and it was this guy Cantrell that in the 1800s invented carbonated water,
Okay.
and then added ginger to carbonated water. So we firmly believe that because ginger ale was invented in Belfast,
itself.
and McConnell's is bringing distilling back to Belfast and was once the great whiskey of Belfast, that we have a unique global right
Yes.
to McConnell's and ginger ale.
Indeed.
At least we believe we have anyway. And
Any
we're sticking to that.
collaborations in mind, or
Well,
anything you can
we
reveal?
certainly have plans.
Okay.
Nothing that we can reveal, but
That's a
you know,
natural fit.
yeah, it's a natural fit, and we
Yeah.
believe we'll tell that story to the full in the
Sure.
coming months and years.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. Okay, well, sherry cask is
Sherry cask.
amazing. Oh
Great.
my goodness. Next up, we have the cognac cask.
Next up and last up is the cognac cask.
Okay.
And again, you know, the color tells a story here because you can see that the color is a little more color than the 5-year,
Yes.
but it doesn't have as much as the sherry.
That's true.
And this is the kind of fortified wine and the Oloroso sherry casks,
Right.
giving it different color than the kind of more refined kind of cognac.
Cognac, of course, is the French white wine that's distilled into a spirit in northern France.
Exactly.
So you're using their casks.
Yeah, and when you nose this and taste this, sugar is something that comes to mind, and castor sugar, dried pineapple. People talk about, and that kind of long, lingering ginger spice is what you should get from this. But it's a different taste. This is kind of quite robust. This is more refined.
It's already more of a subtle nose than
isn't it?
The second one.
Right.
Yes.
So the sherry's got that kind of sherry,
push.
Boost, if you want. Whereas this is more refined, kind of cognac French. It's kind of sláinte.
Oh, sláinte. Yes.
Can't forget that.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. That is even smoother than this. I mean, I guess it should be. It's 20-year-old, but you really...
5-year-old.
That's 5-year-old. Okay.
It's the 5-year-old, yeah.
Got
it's the 5-year-old, but it's been finished in
the
look, it's probably closer to 6-year-old, but because we keep ourselves open, whether it's 8 months, 10 months, or a year,
sure,
we still call it 5-year-old. So it's 5 years, and then in cognac barrels for 9, 10 months.
Ah, it's so smooth.
That's very different, huh?
It's beautiful.
Very, very good. But you can't have any favourites, It's like I have 4 children at home, and they're all equal in my eyes, and it's the same. What we talk about is kind of different occasions,
Right.
This is your everyday, beautiful whiskey neat, whiskey with ginger, beautiful product. This for me is kind of after dinner, dark chocolate. Winter's evening, nice roaring fire, and then this is refinement. This is the champagne of Irish whiskies, in my humble eyes.
Yes.
This is light, it's fragrant, it's got that sugary kind of flavour to it, and very refined drinking in the cognac finish.
Absolutely,
in my
beautiful. And do you ever pair them with food, like with a meal? Or are they best, do you think, enjoyed after a meal?
We do. We have, back at the distillery, we have our own resident chef.
Okay.
And Gemma produces kind of different meals or different courses of the meal with each of the expressions. So this guy tends to be coming later on and with the kind of dessert,
Yes.
And then chocolate is quite interesting, so if you wanted to have kind of chocolate, we would always recommend a lighter chocolate with these two, but a nice rich dark chocolate with the sherry cask is fantastic with this guy here.
I think it would, chocolate melts at body temperature, but I would think that the higher alcohol would just emulsify it even more, and just coat every crevice of your mouth.
Great.
Oh my gosh, how
really
decadent!
Is great. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I do get the orange peel in there as well. Very Christmassy. It's again brings back those spices.
Great.
All right. So we talked about the LCBO. Let me make sure I'm covering everything.
Yeah.
St. Patrick's Day is Canada's single biggest, whiskey moment.
Yeah.
What is the one thing you wish Canadian bar staff knew about McConnell's?
Wow. I mean, there's so many things that they could talk about McConnell's.
Sure.
I think if they're talking about the quality of the liquid, which is important, right? Because people go into bars and very often it'll be the bartender's recommendation that will influence their choice of drink.
Like the house wine.
Right, exactly. Or even your choice of meal. Often I would kind of go, I'm caught between the steak and the fish. What would you recommend? So, our bartender community and those mixologists are, really important to our brand. So, I would love those guys to talk about the fact that this is a 5-year-old premium Irish whiskey, and that number 5 is very important to us. So if that one thing is the one thing to remember, that's great. If they want to remember about the malt content, then happy for them to talk about that as well, and really replay that story that we talked about, that it's warm and smooth with a nice long finish.
Right.
And again, that leans back into the 5 years old. So 5-year-old and that high malt content for a blended whiskey would be the two things I would ask for them to talk about when they're speaking about McConnell's.
And then as they pour their second and third drink, they can get into the snug and the prison and everything else.
Exactly, and we a lot of the stories are on the labels and on the bottles.
Each
so
piece.
I talked to the staff at the LCBO, and or mixologists, and they've got so many things going on that
Sure.
they can't remember everything. But
Right.
but all of the cues for the little stories about Belfast are all on the bottle. So yeah, if they just want to take time to read the label and familiarize themselves with this, then it's all there.
It's all there. So globally, Irish whiskey exports grew 13% in 2024. That's strong category momentum.
Absolutely.
Canada has a very established relationship with Scotch and, of course, Canadian rye whiskey. Where do you see McConnell's fitting in the Canadian whiskey landscape?
I think it's coming. We're growing our brand in Canada at a very interesting time. Obviously, there's no bourbon on the shelf here at the moment in the LCBO.
People are looking for substitutes.
And people are looking for substitutes. And whilst I sold Scotch whiskey in my previous career, sometimes the bridge from bourbon to Scotch,
it's a big bridge.
Can be a big bridge, particularly if the Scotch is like a smoky, peaty, grain, high grain content.
True. That's what
Scotch,
I was exposed to first.
Right. so yeah, if you're in, I'll not mention any brand names, but if you're in that space, and you go from a bourbon to here,
that's quite a palate shock.
That's a palate shock for sure. I firmly believe that Irish whiskey is kind of a nice bridge
middle
there.
Spot, yeah.
And McConnell's, because of what we've spoken about earlier, those first fill American bourbon barrels. The tastings that I've been doing this week, a lot of people are saying, I'm getting bourbon from that. Would I be getting bourbon? The answer is yes, you would be. So I think we're coming into Canada and the LCBO at a really interesting time. There's an opportunity for Irish whiskey to really expand the category, to grow the category, and there's colleagues of ours in the industry who are here this week, pre-St. Patrick's Day, talking about the industry, because we compete on the shelf, but we collaborate a lot as an industry.
Category,
So like our master distiller would seek advice and give advice to other blenders and distillers around the industry, and we share notes and all of that sort of thing. So I think Irish whiskey is on the rise. I think there's an opportunity in Canada now that maybe wouldn't have presented itself 18 months, 2 years ago.
That's true.
And I think we're in a great position to really grow that category. And we believe in that old saying that the rising tide will lift all ships.
Yes.
And we believe we're in a really good space as a category, and I believe that we're in a great space for McConnell's to really grow the brand here in Canada.
That's exciting. All right, so if we were sitting here, we are sitting here a few days before St. Patrick's Day. There's an Irish word that I love, crack. I think it is, meaning lively, fun atmosphere. We're here at the House of Parliament pub in Toronto. And it's one of the 4 pillars of experience at your distillery. What is the single best piece of crack, or the funniest, strangest, or most unexpectedly human moment that has ever happened while bringing this whiskey to life?
Oh my goodness. I mean, so many things have happened, in the distillery. I remember when we were in the middle of construction, and I was taking, the architect and I were going through, and we were looking at the space that was going to be our cocktail teaching class. It's a beautiful space for 16 people. A master mixologist teaches them how to make cocktails. A beautiful, beautiful part of the building. And it was a sunny day like this, and I was looking out the window, and I could see a little kind of graffiti scored onto the window. And keep in mind that we've kept those same windows because we had to preserve the building. And I kind of peered a bit closer, and I'll not say the name, but it was a name, and Republican POW, and this is someone who had been imprisoned during the Troubles, and he had one fine day scored his name on this, and I kind of, it took me back a little bit, because that is part of our history, and we need to know that that's been part of our history. We're moving on from that, but we have to recognize that is something that happened in our history, and acknowledge that happened, and really realize that there's a brighter future. So that, I remember that. And then in a similar context, on the opening day, we had politicians from all of the Northern Ireland parties there. And one of our politicians had actually, in a previous life, spent a little bit of time
In the prison?
In the prison.
Before
And
it
that's
was a
not
visitor
unusual
center.
because from either side of the political divide, famously Jerry Adams from the Republican side, Ian Paisley from the Unionist side, both have been in Crumlin Road jail. Eamon de Valera from the 1916 uprising, he was imprisoned in Crumlin Road jail. So that's not unusual. Belfast is a small city, and lots of people for different reasons were there. But anyway, this politician who was there as a minister on the day was being interviewed, and I was standing in the wings hosting proceedings, but not in the actual interview. And the politician was said, "Well, how are you enjoying your second visit to the Crumlin Road jail?" And I almost nearly passed out. I thought the whole day is going to go off-piste. And I thought, how's he going to answer this? He answered it brilliantly. And I really think it's a story about McConnell's and the jail that I love to talk about. He said, yes, I was here once, and back then this was it was not a nice place. It was damp, it was dark, it was, you were nervous, it was violent, it was a terrible place to be in a prison, right? Sure. In a prison in the 1980s, of course it was. But look what we have done. Look what these guys have done to this building. They have transformed the building into this wonderful space that we have today, which is about bringing distilling back to Belfast, which is about bringing distilling and whiskey to all types of people and places and faces and spaces. So he answered it wonderfully, that this was a place of innovation in the future. Right. And I thought, wow, that was quite an exceptional.
That's great.
So from a moment where I thought everything was going to go, it was fantastic.
Yeah, that's great.
So lots of things like that, but we're just really proud to be playing our part in bringing McConnell's back and bringing distilling back to Belfast.
Wow, that's a great way to wrap. Is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to mention?
Honestly, I think you've covered everything.
Okay,
really.
good.
I can't think of anything. It's been great talking to you today.
John,
I've really enjoyed it.
I love the stories. I love storytelling.
Thank you.
That's what makes it memorable.
Right.
And even all the little pieces, and of course tasting them, it really, wow, it lit up my senses. And it really changed my perception of whiskey.
Good,
so obviously I have a lot to learn, because these are beautiful.
Well, that's part of my job. Yes, of course, I'm an ambassador. I'm very proud to be an ambassador for McConnell's. But I also play my role in Irish whiskey, and we want Irish whiskey to get back there where it belongs, and Belfast to be at the epicenter of Irish whiskey again. So thank you for today.
Thank you,
and
yes.
Sláinte.
Sláinte, and may I say, let's see if I can remember this, may your troubles be less and your happiness more, and may nothing but good times walk through your door.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Sláinte. Cheers.
Sláinte. Wow, I love that. It's so smooth.
Yeah, I really like the cognac for. It's just a lovely, lovely long finish.
It stays with you. It just goes on and on and on.
And that little bit of water, if you wanted to try it with a little drop of water,
I've got a
just
little water right here.
On the on that would open it up
just
nicely.
a little drop, right?
A tiny drop.
Tiny drop, if I can do it.
It'd be difficult out of the. There you go. You can do it. Perfect.
Let's see what happens.
I'm going to try it in the sherry, because I think it really.
Interesting. Oh, right, the darker sherry.
Yeah, it really opens up the sherry also.
Wow, yeah, it is more expansive, but I want to try it on the sherry. I can do just a little drop. Is there something, happening chemically, like with the water, or is it
just opens up the liquid?
Okay.
It opens up, and that's not unique to Irish whiskey. Scotch whiskey is exactly the same.
Sure.
But it just changes the taste perception. I think it really opens up the sherry
expansive.
Amazingly.
Yeah,
I think,
you know what? I think it benefited the sherry more. This was already beautiful.
Yeah.
I didn't need to muck around with this one. But the sherry, it's beautiful, but it really just, instead of the pop, it was more of a long
That's a good way to describe it. That's right. It's not that sherry burst when you put the water in. It's that kind of longer impact.
So
there
good.
You go.
John.
Fantastic.
This is fantastic.